So we began our work with a report where we were able to identify a lot of solutions that were in the space already working on oyster restoration. And by doing that, we had a really good understanding of the oyster community, what some of the barriers and difficulties were around either policy or the actual execution of building an oyster reef. Started with a common definition of here's what we understand the problems to be, and then here's where we see these opportunity areas. There are these inflection points where you can just apply a little bit of pressure and potentially open a system up. And so some of what we're trying to do is put together a group of people who we think are fundamentally optimistic or at least open to new ideas, to thinking in a different way. For us to do our job successfully, we're constantly looking to recruit new contributors to the world of fish. So people who know nothing about oysters are exactly the people we want in the room if we're having an event about oysters. And we recruit people from different domains where they solve problems differently, and they have different ways of approaching how they identify where the barriers are or how they think about unraveling something. So the effect is that you wind up with this incredible diversity of thought in the room. Most of the way that we work as a group is to try to surface everyone's thoughts for everyone to see. So we write stuff down on Post-it notes, in part because otherwise people are sort of driven to the default habit of they take notes privately in their journals or in their form, and they don't get shared. And so a lot of what could be really valuable contributions to the conversation never come out in public. So I think one of the things we try to do in these events is prevent people from solving problems the way they're used to solving them. We split pretty quickly into about 4 or 5 different teams, and the energy around those different teams for the ideas, for how they might build them out, was pretty fantastic. And each of those groups had a different composition, and they all worked toward this goal of what does a successful business look like that might drive oyster restoration. So I think some of what is so exciting to people is not even just what's coming out of the room in terms of the results, but it's the way they feel contributing to it. During the course of this 2-day event, we wound up producing 4 whole business ideas that we're looking at how do you drive more oyster restoration, how do you get more oysters in the water. What we ended up coming up with was that there is this notion of a central idea around oyster restoration that moves into a different space. And it's not about restoration anymore, it's about regeneration. It's about this notion that you've got a portfolio of activities happening, shell recycling, as well as oyster farming, as well as several of these other pieces, gathering of data and the ability to fundraise by being able to quantify what the ecosystem services of these oysters look like. All of those things start to be part of a larger conversation that has a theme, and that theme is regeneration. So the draw of a place like New Orleans is that this is a place where oysters are part of the culture, they're part of the heritage, and it is where the community is located that is dependent on oysters. And the way you connect to a problem is fundamentally different when you can actually see the people who are touched by it. And so a lot of the reason for wanting to be in the city of New Orleans is to be close to the heart of why are we doing this. So the next steps from this event are actually pretty exciting because we have 4 very viable business ideas. And we actually have entrepreneurs or champions that are interested in potentially moving those forward. Ultimately, we hope that what we'll have are 2 to 4 incubation projects that come out of this, and whether that's a collaborative endeavor that we support or one company that's trying to scale, all of that work is interesting to us, and it's exactly the kind of work we do. I want real results. I'm a business accelerator. I want to walk out of the room with real business ideas that we can help incubate. That's my goal.